Hello, friends. It's Amy Calandrino, and I'm coming back to you with another episode of the Performance Mindset Podcast. I'm CEO and founder of Beyond Commercial. You can check out our listings and all kinds of amazing things at beyondcommercial.com. Today, I have with me Emily Wood, who has actually become a good friend of mine, and she's a fellow Power Beacon. And I just love her mindset. She's also a mom of two, and she's in commercial real estate, also just very creative, marketing, all so many things. And we just have these great deep talks, and we've also had some great adventures. And so I thought it'd be great for us to talk about what she has coming up and all the things. So here you are.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited, especially as I have kind of entered new era, 2025. Lots of amazing things have happened over the last few months for me, launching my own podcast. So this is giving me, call it my tips and tricks to see how you operate on here. As well as, I was with a startup, Revere, and recently exited. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about there for other young women who potentially are entering the commercial real estate technology side of the equation. Would love to offer just my call it battle wounds or to my wins and help out the next generation that's coming into the world of prop tech. But my background was in boots in the ground commercial real estate. Worked for a developer for years and did everything from leasing to marketing, all the way through the financing of the deals that we were working on back then. So we can kind of take this conversation how you want, but I really appreciate the opportunity to, chit chat with you. It's been a little while since we caught up.
Well, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, we can talk for hours, so it's going to be a little restraining for us to keep the conversation to a podcast length. So we might end up having to do a second one. But well, let's talk about first, how amazing the commercial real estate world is and how we first got connected.
Yeah. So we were actually nominated on the same list. Marissa had connected us as the 23 most influential women in commercial real estate list that she runs on Otso. It was really amazing because the first time I met you, we were in person in Orlando. And we kind of all just got thrown into a photo shoot together. Obviously, we did get to go through more of the significant things with the rest of the Power Beacons, which resulted in such an amazing campaign, that was right before ICSC. And obviously, we're working to drive impact. But I will never forget just me and you standing on, I was on a stool.
Yeah.
And, it was just really amazing to meet you. And then when secondly, I think the second time we traveled together, we drove from the Reno airport to Lake Tahoe for the Globe Street Women of Influence Conference. And that's where we really got in the weeds about your business and what you were trying to achieve, not only as a broker, as a brokerage, but your own goals, with the podcast, your book. And I was just, very inspired by you. So I love keeping, tabs on what's Amy Calandrino up to.
I can't actually believe that the book is going to be launching this year. It's kind of I feel like I'm birthing a baby of some sort. It's been incubating and actually incubating longer than a child. and so now it's wow. So that's going to be really cool. But yeah, I love, when I'm able to connect with someone and, we share authentically our experience and then help to kind of grow in our journeys together. And then we just got to see each other in New York too.
Yeah.
And took a bunch of us on a walk in New York and showed us all the things.
I loved getting to see you in New York on my home turf, but it was right before it was right after the Real Estate X Gala or right before. Yep. Actually, you might have been getting ready for it. And this year, I'm excited to say that I get to go with you. I'm not, I'm invited.
You've been invited?
Yeah, I just got my invite in my DMs.
We've had conversations, but there hasn't been an official Amy. But I'm sure I'm coming.
I'm sure. So. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you were there last year. It'd be weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was DMing with Strip Mall Guy today because I had talked with him over, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. And then he was like, I'll send you an invite. So I saw the post go out and I was like, here's my email address, here's my phone number. I want to make sure I can go. All my friends were there. But yeah, getting to walk the High Line.
I wonder if I got an invite and it's like in my spam.
I just DM'd him. So maybe just DM him on X. That was like the method that I went.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was nice to get to walk with you guys on the High Line and have lunch. And obviously we got to catch up with Kristen Ginty as well, who's a Power Bankin. And I'd never met her in person, even though she's local to me. So you brought us all together and it was wonderful.
That's one of my favorite things to do when I go to like a conference or anything is my next one I'm going to be going to is Beth Azor's commercial real estate investing conference. And I'm going to find somewhere and book like a spot for like 8 people. And then it's going to be like 16, 20 people. And then we can all kind of get together and know each other. And my new thing is too, is like, if we can share spaces like we did in Tahoe.
It was so nice.
I think it's so fun.
Yeah, I did it again because I don't think you came out this past year, but I did it with a few women in Tahoe again. And that was just new people that I hadn't met before. And we were like talking deals like all over the kitchen. Like we were in the kitchen counter in the Airbnb, reviewing somebody's like pro forma. It was really fun. And that's the kind of quality time that staying in your own hotel room just doesn't give you. So definitely a travel tip for women. I would say if you can bunk up together, it's amazing.
Well, even guys, they want to bunk up together too.
That's true.
Share a room.
Yeah.
But like, what was cool is like when we stayed together, we'd get up in the morning and Beth was like reading a book. She was reading 10X is easier than 2X at the time. And I was like, oh, that's super cool.
Oh yeah. She was so motivating.
I read that. What's that?
She was so motivating that whole trip.
No, it's got a next level energy. I gotta aspire to that. So, but yeah, so we've talked a lot about my podcast, but now you're going to have a podcast. So, what is the podcast about, and when is it launching?
Yeah, so it's a little different than yours. It does focus on mindset in a way. It's called Closing the Deal, Opening Up. And I'm featuring people that I've met in the industry who really have gotten me, call it energized, whether it be the way that they approach their work, approach, their philosophy in the world. I've interviewed, kind of a variety of different kinds of professionals in the industry, from someone who focuses, like she started her own C-PACE like lending program, like her own company with her husband, and kind of talked through what it's like to work with a partner, which I know that you like, Dalee is also talked with us about, but all the way through, a managing director at Ackman Ziff who has that kind of background from the institutional world and now really focuses on giving back. So exploring all different phases of your career, and also, just highlighting really unique people in the industry. And sorry about that. My son is just
happen on a podcast with Dina Zimmerman. Yeah. So, and not as many people watch the YouTube anyways, but if you want to watch the YouTube,
you'll see my son wandering through with no pants, just his hoodie.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, you've already recorded a few episodes, it sounds like. Is it going to be like a weekly cadence, monthly cadence?
So
how often should we expect episodes?
I'm going to promote them weekly. I'm actually doing it more of like a season. So I've got initially 8 podcasts to start. So I'm going to launch them all at once. I'm not going to promote them all at once, but it'll be there almost like a Netflix release where you can go in and take a look through, pick, the most interesting person to you, maybe explore some of the ones that, you haven't, somebody you don't know. The goal is just to get people trying to browse at first. And then hopefully I'll do another release like in the same kind of batch format. But it'll keep me promoting throughout the next few months.
That's interesting. So you're in a marketing background. What are like some of the pluses and minuses, like releasing as like a season where people can kind of binge them versus like on a weekly basis or like a different kind of cadence?
Well, I'm going to say this in two ways. From a marketing side, obviously consistency is really great. So I wanted to have a batch of content that I could pull from and continue to promote. So that way I stay consistent with that. But from a, call it psychology standpoint, really emulating the way that Netflix will release half a season all at once. So that way people are hooked. They're going through all of the episodes. I really did feel like that changed the game for me as a viewer on that platform. So that's what kind of inspired me to adopt that format. And also, like I said, to give people the opportunity, if they're clicking on someone they know, there's other episodes for them to maybe carry on through, because they're not super long. It's about, I'd say their average episode is around 40 minutes. So it's like you may be on an hour and a half car ride and want to click into the next one. Mm-hmm. And really, I think about our audience, which, mainly all of us are in the car. We're going on tours. We're, going to meetings. So trying to be mindful of like, how do people in our community spend their time? And if you are into podcasts, just give someone the easiest way to listen to a bunch, especially because it's new. Unlike someone like you that has other episodes to browse already.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Because I guess when I first started, it was just one episode and one episode and one episode. And I was on an every other week kind of cadence. And then
that's what I thought originally. And then I started interviewing people and I'm like, okay, I have way too many to just not put them all together. Let's Netflix this.
I like it because then you can spend the next amount of time marketing it and then batch processing it. That's really cool. So that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like it. And it's you've never learned something by like trying something different and trying something new. So that's super cool. Have they already launched, or are they launching soon in the next week or so?
Next week. So I've got
probably by the time this like launches, people can find your podcast.
So I plan on launching on January 27th. If I don't meet that deadline, I have given myself the month of January. I decided to pull the trigger on this podcast maybe 2.5 months ago, or it was like right for the holiday.
It's ambitious, and you already got 8 recorded.
Yeah, so I just set my goal. Instead of waiting or again doing it like every 2 weeks, I announced it. I had so many people that were supportive. And I had already kind of teed up like the first few guests that I knew were either in New York or I could quickly, get to jump on. So I recorded those. I have a co-host. Her name is Kayla Hankins. I actually had hired her to work as call it like a business development person at Revere. And we have such a great time working together, and our conversations were always so fun on the day-to-day. I wanted to do something a little different with the podcast instead of just a one-on-one host, like the way that we're talking right now. Throw in an extra person just so that way you've got a little bit more of a chance to, vibe off of each other. And some of my favorite podcasts in general are, let's call it two women on a couch having a conversation. So I wanted to have the opportunity to not only have interview style episodes, but also have episodes where it's just us having maybe an inspiring conversation, or maybe talk about, the challenges we're going through and be really open. The one thing that I want our listeners to really feel from the episodes is a sense of like, these are genuine people that are sharing their stories across, our guests, ourselves.
Right.
And what we're trying to achieve isn't like, I'm not trying to make money from this. I'm not trying to do anything other than share my passions with the world. And if other people can, they jump in and they're sharing theirs, hopefully it'll get someone, jazzed up in their day. That's really the goal.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I'm program co-chair for CREI Summit this year. And part of what we're doing is one of the workshop segments is we're going to break out how to be a great interview guest. You can go to that workshop, or you can go like, how can you be a better podcast interviewer? Or how do you get started as a podcast? And then another one is like, how do you host a podcast without any guests? Like, what's that format look like? And like breaking it down, because I've already had a podcast, and so I may not be interested in like one of these, but someone's going to find some skill that they don't already know how to do. And so,
I love that.
Instead of making it, what we're doing is really zooming in and going deep into each of like the subject things that we're going into. So I'm really super excited about it. It's different. We're bringing back more of the tactical nature of CREI like we had back in New Orleans a couple years ago. And then speaking of work life, balance, kids, all that kind of stuff, how do you balance it all? Because I know you're on your own on this journey. Of course, I have my husband yelling at my kids right now, the babysitter. So how does that go?
I used to make the joke anytime anyone asked, I'd be like, not well. But I would say it is become more natural over time. We've gotten our own routines down. So typically, like if I do schedule something, I try to be mindful. Right now is like a dicey one. Usually they're at aftercare, but my son had his science fair expo, which meant like, he wanted to come home with me afterwards. And you make these compromises, right? Like I know that now my situation is compromised, but they are together and they're happy they're at home. And usually like this is their downtime anyway. So like right now they're doing homework and watching, like they've got their laptops from school. So they do like whatever their educational games. So I was like, at least they'll be focused. And I threw a lot of snacks. A lot of snacks is a big key. A lot of snacks. And make sure they're accessible. Counter level in a snack drawer, whatever functions best in your household.
All the snacks.
Have snacks.
We went on a Costco run this weekend and got like all the snacks again, like replenished, and fig bars and all the different things.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where every 5 seconds it'd be like, Mom, I need something. And now I've learned, I'm like, okay, well, it's here, it's accessible. When you need it, you can grab it because I'm on calls right now. But typically I do, and again, I always try to be transparent. I do have an after school program that they go to until 6:30 usually every day. So that's like a long day for them. But at the same time, the reality is I have to work and they know that. And one of the proudest things that you ever hear, I mean, you probably heard it too, from them is like, they're like, I can't wait to work with you when I get big, Mommy. And that just means so much to me because sometimes you do feel a lot of guilt about, I'm not being present with them or I'm focused on building towards my next goal. But they see you and kids are absorbing everything like a sponge. And as long as you are taking care of yourself, first of all, and then secondly, showing them like you being the best version of yourself, it's hard to mess up from there, but I'm not going to lie, it is stressful. And there are times where I'm overstimulated and need to like lock myself in the bathroom. So it's both.
No, well, and I think about like how good my kids like have it. They have everything they could possibly, like everything they ever want. And when I grew up, like I know that me personally, like there were times where I was like 10 years old babysitting my brother, like 5 years younger, and vacuuming the house, and I had neither parent like at home.
Yeah,
so, like,
same.
Late at night, and so it's like they started aftercare program, and you can only do the best you can get. And there's seasons in life, where I have a lot more flexibility and I'm a lot more hands on. Especially during the summer, I like to like unplug for a little while. I've traveled like solo with them if my husband's still working, and
I love that you do that.
It's kind of crazy.
It's crazy, but like you definitely learn a lot about yourself in that moment. But I'm sure, I mean, for me, it's like I don't really travel with anyone else. I'm lucky now to have found like a really wonderful man in my life. Before it was just, me, but we're not like integrated in that way. Like we have our own autonomous families. We get to enjoy each other, in the middle. But when I'm home and when I'm working, it's just me and them. I just figure it out. I don't know. And we get to do a lot of things that I like to do. I take them into the city. We go to museums. Are they happy about it all the time? No, but
I have good news.
What's the news?
So, hopefully I'm going to the real estate gala. I would be surprised if I'm not, but I will DM Dawn and make sure, because like I did DM him the other day, and I'm like, I saw your tweet about this. Just as an FYI, I keep hearing these people get invites. Am I going or am I not going? So I can plan. But anyways, I am taking the kids like early June to New York, which I heard the weather's really nice. And so we have our travel plans made for that. Because we want to do something a little different. And I know we were talking about it like last year. Are my kids old enough, not old enough? And you were like, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
I do it. It's not going to be like 100% like smooth sailing, but it's not, I mean, in no way are they too young. My kids have so much fun, especially June, Central Park. Like they can go run around on playgrounds. There's restaurants that, you know, they can kind of like plug in and, you know, eat good food. At Broadway. My kids just went to see The Lion King with their grandparents the other day, and I was like, that is incredible. I wish I did that with my grandparents. Might be
playing. That's a good idea. Yeah. Somebody was also telling me Back to the Future is on Broadway right now.
Very cool.
I don't know if I'd want to see that, but they really were into it. So
there's just some classics.
My kids have seen Ghostbusters. My kids are 3 and 5, so don't judge my parenting, but they have they've seen the Goonies, they've seen Back to the Future.
That's the right age for them to see it because they're not processing anything other than like, oh, that's really cool. Like once they get to be like 10 and they're like picking up on things, you're like, sorry.
It's a curse word. That's a curse word.
Yes, pointing it out. My favorite thing is now my son will call me out if I curse. He's like, Mom, you're not supposed to be using those words around us. And I'm like, I'm working on it. He's like, you're not doing a good job.
We just did some family values, and I can't say that we added like do not curse on there because I feel like that would be really. So we have a hack in our house. Is I do drop the F-bomb, and if you want to think I'm unintelligent or whatever because I do,
I'm sorry, it's coming out.
Yeah, it just fucking happens. But anyway, we use the word turtle instead. So it's like these little turtlers or whatever. And then, like, this is turtling hard. We went to a summer camp and we got T-shirts and we had to come up with like names for the back. And mine was Mamba. With the number 44, because I just love the number 44.
Cute.
Remember the guy that was in the commercial? It's like number 44, and he's like dancing through the deli. Plus, my birthday's 4/24/84. I just love fours.
It's your what's it called? Their angel numbers or something.
Probably. Yeah. And so I was Mamba 44, but my husband was like Turtler.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
could have been Mother Turtle, which could have gone the other way.
Mother Turtle. But it sounds like you've like taken a lot of pressure off yourself lately with mothering, and so that probably makes it a little easier for you.
Yeah, I think the anxiety will never go away, and that's something like all moms, like, you know, in the secret, in the back end, you're always going to panic and be like, "Am I messing this up?" But I'm doing my best, right? So that's why when you ask like, oh, like how are things, you know, how do you do it all? I'm like, I'm doing my best. Instead of saying not well, I'm doing my best.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Good progress.
So we talked a little bit about how you're looking to the future and all of that. You've been involved with a startup for a long time. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that and where things are going?
Yeah.
And then I'll let you just riff.
I mean, in the context, I've met so many people. So I have so much gratitude for the last 3 years with Revere. I've honestly traveled the country, met thousands of incredible professionals. I've created my own, you know, call it happy, safe space with Power Beacons, and feel like I have found my tribe. And I know that now I can really take on anything in this world just by looking at the trajectory where I was 3 years ago to now. For anyone who's looking to join a startup, start a technology company, I mean, I would say there's a lot of maybe glamour around it that you think like, oh, like we're going to change the world. This is a big mission. And I'm not saying that that's not true. But I would say expect it to be way harder and expect a lot more on your shoulders than you ever would have anticipated. I think I was so eager to take on, call it the big challenge of getting Revere off the ground, because I was really inspired by the fact that I was trying to connect everyone in commercial real estate in one platform. Like, so call it LinkedIn just for commercial real estate. I love LinkedIn. I love social media. I love the marketing side.
Yeah.
So early on, before even the transaction management piece was even a selling point or a focus for the platform, that kind of drove me into excitements. And I do want to say, not be careful, recognize that your passions can sometimes, I don't want to say, think of the right way. When people see a passionate person, they're going to take all of that and keep taking. So make sure you set boundaries, make sure that you are thoughtful about your time and energy as you're exploring being in a small business like that, because there are so many hats that you need to wear in order to get off the ground. And I think a lot of people, they'll see, again, the flashy, like, oh, I want to jump into prop tech, and they'll join a prop tech company, not really acknowledging that if you are not a jack of all trades, if you can't adapt to complete pivot of how you're going to market a product or how you're selling a product, or even the product itself might change very quickly. And that happened over the last 3 years quite often. Our goals would be go 100% in this direction, and then within a week it was moving in an opposite way. So that kind of push and pull, no matter how hard a worker you are, no matter how much energy flows through you, that's going to bang you up over time. And I mean, you've seen me in my most positive high self to I'm having a really hard day today's kind of struggle.
Right.
And I think that's something that many people don't talk about, because they're all trying to recruit you. They're trying to get you into the motion of like, come in to do this exciting mission. We're going to transform the industry. What people tend to not talk about is just how much you give of yourself for, call it the equity, for the, the big hope for the future. So I'm not, in my mind, I'm like, I feel really great to say I exited a startup in 3 years. I brought a literally idea on a paper napkin, $0 in revenue, to over $6 million that I've sold over, my time at Revere. And I have all of these things that I could say, I'm so proud of this, but I can also look back at littler Emily, younger, call it 3 years younger Emily, and say, I wish I gave myself a little bit more grace to know like it was going to be really hard. And I wish that like I took it like a breath sometimes, when really I was just in momentum. And until now, I think that's probably why my mentality seems so nice. Even on the parenting side, I'm like, there is way more important things in life than.
It's funny as you're saying this, is like, I'm totally tracking what you're saying, because like I was so hard on myself.
Yeah.
And like, especially when I went through the pivot in my company and changed things, I just thought like all of a sudden everything would change and I'd be in a different place. And I definitely have given myself like way more grace and much more understanding, than I, ever did before. And like, I've just kind of chilled out. Like, I think my therapist asked me today, like, how's your anxiety? And I'm like, the anxiety that I'm having right now is anxiety about not having anxiety.
Yes. That's the best. I mean, it'll never go away fully, but the fact like I've gotten to times now like where I'm like, oh, it's too calm. I'd say my anxiety spiked once I got all of the paperwork for the closing, and I was away in South Africa, like literally, it's called this like last week. Like I got back last Friday, and I got all the paperwork, and I was like, oh my God, like I have to do this here. Like I was celebrating my sister's wedding, but then even like, I think God has a path for everyone, but I think he planned it for when I was going to be away. So that way I couldn't fully have my true anxiety moment because I had to separate. I'm here for my sister's wedding. I cannot go into an emotional spiral. I give kudos to my family and my partner for like the one night that when we got all the paperwork and I was literally like, boom, like full collapse of.
Well, it's been your identity too.
It has
for
been.
so long. And so.
And that's another thing
Talk
that
about that. Like, yeah, like what are you struggling with now? Like, like you had to have known that this day would come,
yes.
but like, how does it feel now?
It's funny because I've ended up talking about this a little bit.
I know we've talked about it the last couple of years.
Yeah, I talked about it a little recently on an episode of the podcast where I was complimenting someone because I asked essentially for their like elevator pitch, like, who are you? And the person responded with, nothing to do about their job, just who they are as a person. I was like, I give you such kudos because I feel like I have always answered that type of question with, this is who I am. This is what I do for work. Because I feel like that's who I am. So it has been sort of a identity crisis. I do think that I immediately, as you said, I knew it was coming. So I started the podcast. I was like, I need to start thinking of ways that I feel good about myself, even if I'm not hanging a banner somewhere. Because I'm more than just Emily Wood, the hard worker. I'm Emily Wood, the full spectrum of a human being. So it's something that I'm working on. Honestly, sense of identity is a huge therapy conversation that I have at least every other week because I have tied myself to every single business that I've started, that I've worked for. I really treat it as like, this is my, like almost like it's me. And now I have the opportunity to work on just me.
Yeah. And how old are your children now?
9 and 6.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good time too.
It is.
To spend more time and before they become a teenager and they hate you is what I hear from a lot of my girlfriends.
I know. I mean, I've already got, then my 9-year-old's a mini teenager over here. He's got I'm using his gaming headset right now because I was like, I need to have a microphone.
I was like, that is a nice game. That is a nice headset. I didn't know it was a gaming headset, but it kind of looks like my cold calling.
Yeah, cold calling one. I love it. But that's like him and his like video game buddies. They're all like, they get in after, on a weekend or whatever, and he'll have like 5 kids. They all like play Fortnite together. And I'm like, this is going to be my life for the next, call it 5 years for him. I mean, well, not 5 years, 7 years, because in 18.
Oh, whatever, yeah.
Well, 18 until they go to college. Sure, that's my marker point. My 40s are going to be incredible because I'm going to be living my best life as an empty nester.
I just turned 40, so I will not get empty nester status until 50.
Listen, different battles.
I get crazy. I don't know, maybe longer, but
I had to sacrifice all of my 20s, when everyone else was like hanging out, having fun, finding themselves. I just found myself in work.
But like as you're finding your new identity, your true self, like all of that and kind of reformulating all that, do you have like any like goals that you have for this year or?
Yeah. I think this year, obviously, there's opportunities right in front of me at the time where, my company being sold, like there's a lot that could be worked on to bring together a vision for, the company that acquired us. I'm excited for, the strategy work there. But at the end of the day, what I'm most excited about is really honing into the connections I've made, because I think a lot of times we're so busy sowing the seeds. We're not thinking about, okay, well, how can I, first of all, before you even harvest, how am I going to nurture these relationships, or how am I going to take care of all of the seeds that I planted over the last 3 years? And so that is really what I look at as 2025 for me. It's going to be a very big greenhouse of all the seeds that I've planted over the years and figuring out what I need to do to get that to be the big full plant, aka a beautiful relationship with, some of the most amazing people like yourself. What can I do to benefit Amy? What can I do to bring bring things like forward. I feel like I've always like piecemealed, tried to offer, you know, my help and, you know, be present for people. But now I think with this opportunity of not being in crazy startup mode in a sense, I get to really enjoy everything that I've kind of put together to date.
Yeah, get to kind of enjoy the journey and being present, and yeah, because it is a bit of a whirlwind. The concept I've been really focusing on lately is like, what is enough? Enough, like, because there could be all these opportunities. I could like wildly grow my company again. I could do all these things, but
And
is what I have enough?
that's what I
Like,
mean. Or what is the thing that's going to be correct to put your time and energy into now?
right.
Because I think for me, I've always looked at like, oh, something's going to fall in my lap, or rather like there's so many opportunities. What's the right thing for me? So sometimes that'll stick you into not doing anything because you have all of the stuff right in front of you. You're like, I don't know how to take action. So you just keep doing the same thing and almost letting the opportunities just exist. So I'm excited to see what, you know, you kind of lean into this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's a lot more of intentionality, and I've been just even more like I know my book's called From Perfect to Real, but like being much more like authentic. Like I was really like struggling, and I reached out to someone who used to work for us, and she didn't want to follow us to the new house. It's actually our housekeeper, and she thought it was going to be like too much, and you know, and it would have been the way we had it structured before, and then we hired someone else, and it was a mess, and then I fell down my stairs, and I hurt all my foot and I couldn't move around and blah, 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 blah. And I called her. I'm like, I'm struggling. Okay. I need some help. Can you like bail me out? And then she came back. She's like, oh, I missed you guys. And I'm like, oh, like what can we do to make this work? And so now she's back with the family. Like I'm super happy, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then I had another situation in my company where, you know, just it wasn't working out. I did try some overseas virtual assisting help, but I think I'm just too type A.
It's really difficult to use
a
VA. I think that if you are a person that naturally delegates, then it's a home run for some people because they're like, oh, I can just type, like, do this, do this, do this. But there are so many people, first of all, that delegating is just not the first, call it your first language. And secondly, you're like, I can do it myself. Call it many founders who think, oh, I could get a VA and just start doing 10x what I'm doing now. That's a job managing a VA in itself. Like you almost need that to be like your secondary hire. You need somebody like in person that you can really like rely on and then let them use that as a cheaper tool to outsource stuff so they can do more. And you need that trust factor with, call it your operations person. Yeah, I saw that you were going to hire, right? A brokerage operations person.
So yes. So listen to this. So we had the ad out for a while and we weren't getting good people. And I was just like, fine, I'm going to put it on social media that I need help. My former project manager saw it. She's in the MBA. She's getting her MBA right now. And she wants something part-time for at least a year or so. And she already knows our systems and everything. And she started back today.
Oh, congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah. And we got, you know, she left on really good terms. We've remained friends. And so it was literally like, here's all your logins reactivated. Go check out what new deals we have and go to town.
Oh my gosh. You must have felt so relieved.
All the systems. And so I'm like, okay, I think God does not give you more than you can handle. And so, but I think one thing that I'm working through right now is just, again, is I am starting to carve out some space here and there and getting used to there being space and not chaos as I get things optimized, not immediately going and filling it and getting used to there being space.
That makes sense. I think a lot of people have like a workflow of like, call it like momentum deliverables, like kind of like you have two phases and you need both in order to operate at your peak. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really good strategy for you is just box out that time of space. I'm big on time boxing in general. It's one of like my main tools that I use every day in order to not be crazy with like getting the kids to school, even in the morning time. Like I've got me time before they wake up, and like that's when I get myself ready. Then it's like lunch, breakfast, wake them up, get them dressed, get out the door. Then I've got my morning, like all my check-ins. And then at noon every single day, I've had for literally the past probably 5 years from 12 to 1. I don't call it lunch, like, because like I could eat lunch anytime. I might have a lunch, but 12 to 1 is like nothing time. I don't want anything on my calendar. I always block it off. I will refuse meetings at that time because I'm like, that is my time to process the whole morning and move on to the next phase of the day. So I feel like if you give yourself that intentional time, you'll be much happier.
I'm a sprint till 2:00.
That's fine. You can do 2.
You got to know your cadence, but then at 2, I try, except for like Wednesdays when I take podcasts like later, but I think it's important to know yourself and stick to it.
Oh, like, yeah, for sure. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. Like that's just my time of day. And
what time do you get up though?
Around like 5:30. I have an alarm at 6:30. That's like my hard, like I got to get out of bed, but like I'll start waking up around then, maybe like watch a TikTok or whatever before I get out of bed. But I think it's more so because I'm like, I've all the morning stuff that I had to deal with. It's just like breathe, look at like, okay, what do I need to accomplish? Because then I do from 1:00 all the way till 6. So it's like two separate functions of the day. And then it's like 6:00 on, then it's me and the kids, right? And then that's a whole other part of the day. So 3 parts of the day and then sleeping.
I think having time blocks and sticking to them as much as you possibly can is key. So I try to jam every single thing work related before 2, and then have like afternoons be more like strategic and whatever else I need to do. But I think I like to work out in the afternoons too.
You've been kicking butt on that. I'm so like, that is something that I've put on my like minimum. I'm on like a 90-day reset kind of thing for myself after the closing. So I'm like going back to like more whole food, plant-based eating. I am trying to say 3 minimum workouts per week because it's like I have a gym membership. I go randomly. I don't have a routine, and I'm like, I got to get back in check there because it feels so good. It's not even about like your appearance, anything like that. Like I could probably just, do some like at home workout and like feel fine about like my appearance. But like, I really love that time at the gym where you're just, it's isolated time, right? You can do work. Obviously you could be on the treadmill or something, but it forces you out of your home, your comfort zone. It's like
my laptop does fit on the treadmill.
Yeah. That's like you can. But I like physically being there. It is like a nice thing for the day.
It's like 80-20. And it's, again, like you talked about it before in the podcast, it's like giving yourself grace. Like give yourself grace. And like, I think that's I think that's why I've stayed the most consistent in the gym than I've ever in my entire life is, I've been pretty consistent at least 3 times a week for the last, few years. And,
that's awesome.
And I think that physical therapist said that was a huge part of why I healed so quickly, like with my ligaments. And like, I think my body, I just got on the recumbent bike for the first time since falling down the stairs like 3.5 weeks ago. So yeah. So, but I'm going to stick to it. I enjoy it. And there's some people that are super elite athletes and all these other people, they're always like so nice to me. Like, I'm
That's
like,
so nice.
And it motivates me.
Of course.
And like former football players, basketball players. I belong to the YMCA, and then also a place called Genesis Health Club, which is the former RDV, which has just a very like elite club. And then I also have another place that's a 1-minute walk from my house now, the clubhouse where I belong. So it has something. So yeah,
I'm a YMCA person too.
Well, the YMCA. Oh, we were talking about hacks. I was talking to someone about work-life balance hacks. Is the YMCA, most YMCAs have 2 hours of child development. You don't need a 2-hour workout. Like, it would be great if you want to do a 2-hour workout. But if you legit needs to work on your calendar for an hour, and then work out for an hour, the YMCA is a great resource for like moms, like
For sure.
Yeah.
Both my kids did the YMCA like preschool programming. So starting from when they were like 2 years old, and that was like that 2 hours in the morning time, like 9:30 to, I guess it was 9:30 to 12. So I did it, and yes, it definitely makes your life more functional when they are in that kind of, they're starting to get their feet wet into the education world, and you get to work out or run to the grocery store, whatever.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. So, well, this has been awesome. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to listen to your podcast. Is it also available on YouTube?
So I'm not going to be doing full episodes on YouTube quite yet. I found that because I'm doing most of my recording in person, and this is a complete self-conscious thing. I'm looking at myself and like we're sitting and talking, and I feel like I haven't quite felt like I love a full 45 minutes of me talking. I'm like, that's a little awkward. I'm like saying, I got some dinosaur hands. I don't know. Something has thrown me off. So I'm going to do.
I don't let myself watch my YouTubes.
So I am going
to be in person. I just set up a podcast studio, like in person for both people in person. So I might end up feeling the same way, but I'm not committed.
It's very interesting, but I will be doing clips on social media of like my favorite sound bites from the episodes in video format, but it'll be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. So I'm very excited to launch it, and thank you so much for giving me the kind of platform to share a little bit about my story. And hopefully people come over and want to hear a little more about what we've got going on.
And then how do people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. It's like Emily Wood, New York is my back URL, but everywhere else is just at Emily in CRE. Very simple.
Yes, I remember you changed that up.
I know. I think that happened right when we were in New York together. I was like, I'm doing it.
Emily in CRE, and that was based on
Emily in Paris, the Netflix show. Okay, this has come full circle into how I'm like releasing my episodes. Clearly, I have a Netflix addiction.
We all do. I think we all do. So, well, awesome. This has been great, and can't wait to.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you.
And can't wait to see you. So, shouldn't be too long now. And so then, I guess I'll go ahead. This is Amy Calandrino signing off. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Performance Mindset Podcast. Don't forget to go to amycalandrino.com and pre-order your book From Perfect to Real if you haven't already. Have a great day.
Thank you.